Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Ask the Experts Brunch and Learn. This is the second of our Ask the Experts, and it was all because you loved it last time. So I'm hoping you're going to have a really good time again today. We've had lots of questions already submitted, but you can keep submitting while we're live. So you need to just do that in the chat, and they will magically appear on my iPad to ask the team. So don't be shy, keep the questions coming. Also, if you can stay muted throughout and put your Zoom to speaker view, that will give you the best experience for watching this back. So I am surrounded here by some of our amazing experts in the Reflect team, and I'm going to ask them all to just introduce themselves. So let's start with Gary.
Hi, Becky. Thanks very much. Lovely to be here. I am the creative director here at Reflect, so I'm the annoying ideas person. And I also run the content asset creation side as well. So video, photo, audio, live streaming, drones, whole kit and caboodle. I've spent 10 years agency side, 10 years global corporate sales, and kind of like my strap line is that I create about 1,000 videos a year. So over the past 10 years, between 7,000 to 10,000 videos a year.
Videos. Hi, I'm Lottie. I'm head of paid media. So I work very closely with Gary in relation to using the great content that he creates from social platforms. So my team work across PPC, paid social, programmatic, basically any platform that you can buy. My background is in scientific research. Therefore, my team very much focus on actionable insights and using statistical analysis to drive more robust planning and analysis with work with clients. My background is about 12 years working across a variety of different sectors, including charity sectors, B2B, retail, publishing, lots of different sectors, which is fantastic, gives me a great breadth of knowledge and understanding, which really helps actually apply some of that learning to brands. So, yeah,
I'm Jo. I'm head of content and digital PR at Reflect Digital. I used to be a journalist for around 10 years before going over to the dark side in terms of PR about 7 years ago. Absolutely love it. My role is essentially to make sure we're delivering high quality content that incorporates behavioural science into our content and for our clients, and get really great results and coverage for our clients too. Yeah.
I'm Andy. I'm head of SEO at Reflect. I've been in SEO for, doesn't look it, about 15 years now. I've been in-house, I've worked agency side, I've also run my own businesses. So anything I get my hands on and do some SEO with, I will do. I live and breathe SEO basically.
And I'm Matt. I'm one of the SEO managers here at Reflect, and I've been working in-house and agency side for about 6 years, working on some of the biggest brands in tech, creative side. And I also lead our working group. We are looking into the ways that AI can and already is changing the ways that both we and our clients work.
Amazing. I think we might end up with quite a few AI related questions today. So the panel are all prepped, but Matt, you might have a job to do there. Andy's also our internal comedian, so I enjoyed that. I wasn't in the practice run either, so that was good. Cool. And I'm Becky. I don't think I said that at the start, but I'm founder and CEO here at Reflect, and we are an agency that supercharges your marketing using behavioural science. So hopefully we've got your brunch boxes if you requested one. Massive thank you to Erin and the team for getting those out. Feel free to tuck in or save it, or if you've already eaten it, that's also cool too. But yeah, so welcome to this session. Let's kick off with our first question. So we are going to start with a question from Shira Lawson from Coach Built Spirits. Hi Shira, hope you're with us today. And her question is on AI. So there might be a bit of a theme through these questions. How have you adapted to the world of or utilized AI to your favor? And we're going to start with Matt on that one.
Definitely. I think it's a really interesting question because a lot of the hype we get with AI is all around, it can do everything or do anything we want. Actually, the ways that we've adapted it, and I think are the most useful ways to adapt it, is finding the things that it's really good at. So it's not great at sort of one and done, produce content, send it live, all of that kind of things. If you give it a short, very specific job, it can be really, really powerful. So one of the ways that we look at that is we map out internal processes or things that we do to get to our destination already, and then decide actually, are there steps of this that are repeatable, that are relatively simple, that we can give to an app and say, please do this step, and then we'll take it from there. So having that human review element is actually really important still. One of the ways that we've really utilized that element of it in some of the work we're doing with clients and internally is actually creating a pipeline almost of here's some content, can you take that away and review it against a particular piece of information or a brief or something like that, and actually just getting those sort of first eyes on there's a typo there, there's something else there that we need to tweak. Those can actually be really simple but powerful ways of doing it.
Amazing. I think we've tried that as well with like brand guidelines and things like that, which I don't know about you guys, but sometimes you see brand guidelines documents that are like 200 pages long and you're like, how can I know it all? I can't. Well, AI can. So no, that's really good. I think, Joe, you had some thoughts on this one as well.
So, I mean, for us, we tend to use it for brainstorming. I think we mentioned this before, but it's a big part of our brainstorming sessions. We don't, as kind of Matt said, we don't rip the content off. It just wouldn't be right. It's almost generally always wrong. It's quite monotonous, and it's very robotic. So we just have to put in that human element to the content that we write. And it's also a big part of our tools that we have as well. So things like Meltwater, that's basically using AI to get human insights and audience insights into the reporting, and looking at the content that we're getting, the coverage that we're getting, and seeing how the audiences and everything. But, yeah, there we go.
Amazing, amazing. And then Gary, I think you had a few comments.
Yes, I use it for the boring stuff, right? The stuff that I don't want to do, which is mostly writing words. One tip I do is, if I want to reference a load of data to help convert that into creative, I'll have obviously like 10 different reports and a load of PowerPoints and stuff. I personally will not be able to recall every bit of information at any one time. So if I can upload all of that data and ask AI to say, hey, what would be a good idea? Check all these documents. It will do a much better job than I would ever do, but I would obviously convert that into a human approach as well, right? And another tip is zero GPT documents. So if you do use all the words, you can copy and paste your copy into zero GPT and give you a percentage on how much you're cheating. So that's a good website.
That is a good one. Yeah, I've definitely noticed you can start seeing when something feels really clearly ChatGPT.
Yeah, it loves the word chronicles. I don't know if you
Yeah.
ever seen like chronicles. Oh my God. And
Yeah.
navigation and compass.
And
Yeah.
the Zs as well. That's a huge giveaway.
Oh,
It's
God.
like,
Yeah.
get rid of the Z.
You can train it on that though.
Yeah, I've trained mine.
So we've got, Mira from Rightmove has asked us a question, sticking with the AI theme, and I think sticking with Gary for a moment. How do you manage authenticity for your brand with a growing usage of AI tools?
Don't use AI tools. No, I think, like we said, it's a good starting point. I use AI in particular as like a second Gary, if you can imagine something, right? I use it to bounce ideas around. I don't use it as gospel. I just use it to kind of help trigger stuff. I'm more of a trigger creator, right? Give me a little bit of a strike a match and then 1,000 ideas come in, right? So yes, I'm definitely human first. And I think if you want to, when everyone zigs, you zag, right? If you do want that authentic human first approach, don't use AI. Try and make mistakes and be human. We did a shoot the other day where it was like a fireside chat between two people, and we tried to do it in one live take, or as if it was live. So there are those ums and ahs and stutters, a bit like what we're doing here today, right? And that authenticity and human first approach is really going to make a difference now that AI is trying to take over. Everyone's trying to use AI, so maybe try don't. But if you do want to use it as a foundation or as a Kickstarter for your own ideas.
Definitely agree on that one. Andy, I feel like you might have had some comments on that as well.
I kind of echo what you said earlier about how you can use it with your tone of voice documents or brand guidelines documents. You can train tools like ChatGPT to basically read that 200-page document if you've got time to, and therefore make sure that the content you're putting out or your content that's done for you does match your tone of voice or your brand guidelines. Basically take the hard work out of it, make that a bit easier for you.
Amazing. And Lottie, did you have some thoughts on this one?
Talked about already. So really, for me, AI is a functional tool, really, when in the context of what we do. So we use it for the processing of information, for data analysis, and kind of maybe helping out things a bit mundane that we do on a day-to-day basis, bringing us up to be more creative and using our own insights and thoughts to then actually drive that for the brands we work with. So I think that's the differentiator, is where brands or people are trying to use AI as a creative tool. That isn't how it should be used. And people are so now aware of the difference between something that is AI created and it's not. even if it's just a background feeling. But equally, there's also that feeling of like, is it AI? The first things people are going to think to. So again, to your point, Gary, it's an interesting one about actually breaking that mold and moving away from using AI in that context is probably, I would say, a good idea, because it means you're not going to be putting into that. Actually, it's not it's branding, it's something else.
Definitely. John, I was with some agency owners yesterday and we were talking about AI, and there's some tools that kind of can help you create a pitch deck. I was like, if everyone else starts using it, we're literally all going to rock up to pitches with the exact same decks. Like,
Exactly.
we really are losing the human part. And obviously we're very human versed in what we do. So really that doesn't happen. So sticking with brand as a topic and moving away from AI for a minute. We'll come back, I promise. Neve Carpenter from BCMS has asked, do you have any advice or must-dos for a company rebranding, particularly in terms of website and tech stack? And this, we're going to start with Andy on this one.
Yeah, I can take that question a little bit differently, but thinking about it from like an SEO perspective is when you do that rebrand, think about, well, people aren't going to know immediately about that. So they're going to still be Googling your old brand name. They're going to be seeing your brand logos and the sites and things like this. So consider those kind of journeys of when somebody Googles your brand name on those few weeks after the relaunch, what landing page are they direct to, what are they going to see, what's their first experience going to be like, and also reclamation of coverage on other sites. So if you've got a key partner that mentions you or links to you, will have they updated their logos, make sure that it's all consistent across other sites as well.
Amazing. And Lottie, did you have some thoughts on that one?
Yeah, so I think where I've seen it work really well when people have done that transition over is that they have given that journey. So again, think about from the customer's perspective, they've suddenly got to transition their mindset into a new brand, be that even if it's the same product. There's a reason why you've rebranded, and so therefore you need to try and translate that information over to the customer. And where brands do it well is that having that, taking them on the journey and explaining the reason why they've gone down that, and actually that you as a brand are the elements are still the same that they love, and the elements that maybe are different, which is why you've gone down this route, and making sure that that's translated. But brands don't necessarily do it so well. It's that assumption, to your point, Andy, that they just sort of switch from one to the other, and the assumption is, well, but people know. Yeah, but do they understand? Like, they might be aware, doesn't mean they actually understand the rationale of why you've made that decision to rebrand, and you know, the path that you're then taking down. So I think that's super important when looking at that transition, is understanding that customer journey for those individuals and actually mapping that out in advance, and so that you can then plan for that activation across all the channels.
Definitely. I think having marketing part of that conversation, I think sometimes marketing's brought in a bit too late to think about it. And actually, it's really important to think about how we're going to bring it to life, etc. Joe, I feel like you had some thoughts on that one.
So I suppose off the back of both of them is, when did you start wanting to tell everybody about your new branding? Get your comms right. We've done it before. It's about bringing everybody in, all the key stakeholders, making sure everybody knows this is happening, the date it's happening, and get your comms out. And when you do, is there any newsworthy topic that you can bring into that as well? So have you seen growth in a company? Have you done it because of XYZ? Just really highlight it that bit more, rather than it just be rebranded. It's like, what else can you offer? Jones will love that. And if it's a key time in the year that you can release it, or halfway through the year, that's a really important point. Anything you can add to it is really great. And also that links as well for your new website. So yeah.
Definitely. And I guess there was a part in that question around tech stack. So I did ask our friends at Lab about this morning, because we thought actually they're probably the best people to answer. And I think the advice from the tech side is to really think about composable architecture. Think about how you can build a site that is going to set you up for the future. I think gone are the days where you want one piece of tech that you're then stuck with for however long. You want to know that you can add new bits of tech in at the right time and be able to embrace things as they happen. So being able to layer that technology together to have the right solution for the right thing you're trying to do is really important. But I think if Neve, you wanted anything more than that, we can hook you up to have a chat with one of the more techie people, because we're kind of more on the marketing side over here. So I'm definitely giving you some marketing answers there. Amazing. So let's talk about cookies. That's probably going to make everyone hungry, but the cookieless world. So we've got Caroline Halley from Booper has asked, how do we effectively navigate a cookieless world? How do we prevent it from impacting our performance and make sure, the kind of questions, oh no, here we go. Make sure we're still extracting valuable data to hone experiences. So this is for you, Lottie.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sorry, no, Gary. Gary's
Yeah.
going to answer that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, sorry. So obviously cookies and tracking overall has been a massively hot topic for quite a number of years now. I think my personal opinion is the first place to start is an audit. So to look at exactly what cookies you're using, what tracking systems you're currently using, and what you're actually relying on. A lot of platforms, because it has been going on for a while now, have moved transitioned their tracking solutions or targeting solutions over to a cookieless solution. So be that ID tracking formats or whatever the solution, bespoke solutions some instances have got. But I think that's the number one place to start, because until you understand where you're relying upon those particular data sources or ways of tracking or targeting, you can't obviously facilitate anything towards that. So that would be my first place to start. As I said, a lot of businesses now, brands now have come up with alternative solutions or ways to kind of navigate it in a privacy safe way. So I think before it was a bit scary, you know, everything's going to change. I think the reality is that things will change. How much that will change from our side of things, from the technical implementation will differ, but how much from our side, you know, we see that tangible difference we'll still to be seen in some instances. But we've already moved over for a lot of the solutions that we're using to cookieless alternatives. So we can still programmatic, for example, we can use cookieless solutions for targeting purposes. So there isn't that reliance so much anymore. Obviously, from the perspective of Google, you know, going through the process of working out how they're going to effectively create the ability to still target people and some audiences, is still things that are kind of going through iterations. But we know how important personalization. People, even though they say they don't want to be tracked, still want personalization. So there is still that connection between the two. And I think ultimately, these big businesses like Google, you know, they're going to have to come up with solutions that enables both sides of the point to be happy, because ultimately from their perspective, so they're not going to kind of cut that off massively, and they want to ensure that they're creating the best user experience with using their search engine, which is essentially what they're interested in doing today. So I think there's some good steps to take to start with. I would say I wouldn't panic. I think there's sometimes that worry, and people are a bit it's going to be the world. It's not. And I think just making sure that we are keeping level headed about it, and like I said, just planning and understanding the situation.
Love that. Love that. So sticking with Booper at the moment, actually, Hannah from Booper's also asked a question, and I really like this question. So well done, Hannah. This is a good question. Digital marketing feels like it's changing a lot. It's what excites you most about that? We're going to start with Gary on this one.
Everything excites me. I think it's storytelling is what's the exciting bit, right? There's less about selling product and service and more telling the story behind that product and service. We kind of see it from like the big guys over Christmas with the John Lewis Act, right? But I think now there's a lot more focus on the journey of people in those organizations from a B2B perspective. So I really like the fact that people start to switch on and tell stories, you know, and you know what I try to say to people is think about what your audience is consuming and put yourself in their hands. So if they're watching Selling Sunset, it's irrelevant whether you are in property or not. Try and make content that's similar to that, so they'll watch it, and then you're always in the back of the mind, right? So what's exciting is that people are talking less about themselves, which is great.
Love that. Love that. Lottie?
Yeah, so from my perspective, sorry.
We'll go to Andy because he was next up on what excites you. You got too excited, maybe. Too many ideas. I know how that brain works. This is all right.
There's a lot happening, mostly about search generative experience. It's really not easy to say. But AI overviews, basically in the way Google's changing their results, and now be AI generated to some extent with some of the initial things that come up at the top of the search results, particularly for question-based queries, but it's going to be also for product-based queries or reviews and potentially quite a lot of things. So just to monitor really going forward is going to be seeing how that actually impacts you as a business. But what's exciting about it is that we've got some work to do, because we're going to start to react to these new search results, the way that things are displayed differently and things are prioritized in different order. So it's nice that we have something more to react to. We always do, but it's a big change for sure.
Definitely. Feels like a change to the customer journey because it's going to be at different points we might see those and then it's kind of adapting, which that was. So Megan Morley, hi Megan, I know you Megan, you're lovely, from the University of Kent. What are your top tips for marketers needing to adapt their content for Google search generative experience? It really is a mouthful, isn't it? SGE.
Yeah, SGE. Probably short answer is don't. Like, still consider your humans. Still human first content is going to be the thing you need to aim for. If you're creating content that is for your users, then you're naturally going to be answering their queries, giving them the right information, which is the kind of information that Google relies on for its AI generated results. You just really have to see though what happens in terms of if you're ranking for lots of question-based queries, and then you're getting AI Google's generating the answer for you. You'll see, do you actually get click-throughs from that result, and you need to change or tactics change or way of generating traffic potentially. So that's a risk, I think, going forwards. But still keep putting content together for your humans first.
Definitely. Matt, did you have thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think there's lots of ways that we can sort of adapt our content for SGE, but it's things that we would want to be doing for other reasons as well. So when we're looking at sort of subheadings on content, are we phrasing it in a way that the user understands what that content is going to be about? Are we answering that question properly? And if we do that, Google's going to be able to pick that up as, here's a question, here's an answer. Great, that's a source that I'm going to be able to use. And it's also thinking about sort of the wider context of it is, what do we do to demonstrate EAT? So that's expertise, experience, authority, and trustworthiness, which are signals that Google uses to determine actually who's a good source for me to be using for these AI-generated overviews. So I think there are already things that are beneficial to do for rankings beyond just SGE. As long as we're hitting those elements, then yeah, that's going to be the best place for actually driving traffic from these new snippets on SERPs.
Amazing. And I think that is the key to all of it, isn't it? Is just keep serving humans. It was interesting, actually. Lottie and I were at an event with one of our partners, GWI, the other week, and they were showing some data around, well, they posed the question around authenticity and actually like how, as marketers, we keep talking about it as this buzz thing that's like, oh, people love authenticity more. But actually the data on it is pretty flat. But actually, if you think about it, when would there ever have been a time where if you'd said to someone, do you want a brand to be authentic? No, I want them to lie to me and make stuff up and be rubbish and not authentic at all. Like, of course, it's not changed, but actually what has changed is we have more ability to show our authenticity because we've got different platforms. So it's kind of, that's always how marketing's changing, actually. Like, go back to the days of Mad Men and the principles are still the same. We just have different ways of doing it. So yeah, really love that. Amazing. Right, where are we going next? We are going to jump to, let's do a PRE question. So coming to you, Joe. What successes have you seen with TikTok? Because I feel like people just think of TikTok more on the search side and like ads and social, but actually we see it really powerful from a PR perspective. 100%. So tell us a bit more about that.
Oh, TikTok is, I mean, it's not necessarily what I go on much, but it's definitely what a lot of my colleagues go on and use a lot. And we've got some great specialists who just are really great at picking up the trends that are the videos that are trending on TikTok. And utilizing this and bringing it into our PR strategy. So we will say, right, we're going to look at any trends that are coming up that you can flag to me. And we'll use that as like, okay, we're going to take an expert from said company or client that we work with, get them to react to that particular TikTok video. And it could be like a warning against, so we have a pet insurance company, we use their in-house vet. I think we spoke about this before, but we've seen so much success over the last even 3 months. And the vet will warn against doing a particular TikTok, like throwing a lemon at a dog. Well, you know, it's not particularly great that I know it's stupid things like that, or tying their ears up. That's apparently a trend as well. So it's all things like that. But then the vet will give their reaction to it, and then the press will just love that kind of content because it's that warning. And people, if it's a trending, so typically it'll be over 1 million views or 1 million shares. So yeah, it's just kind of like using those content. How can you tap into these trends, and how can you bring yourself as an expert and sort of turn that around into a story that then you can use and you can be part of that conversation on. And it's just happening more and more for all our clients. It's not just a pet insurance client. It can be a law firm. So it could be like I don't know, particularly like like new girls in their jobs in a marketing role or something like that, and then you know, bringing in like Stanley mugs or whatever they use. And so it could be like, you know, we could get an employment lawyer to talk about that kind of thing. So yeah, it's just like tapping into all those trends.
Love that. Love that. So we then have a question from Kirsten Crisford from Bucks and Burks Recruitment. Now, this is a good question. And yeah, this very relevant because we are an agency. So do you think that agencies can truly be part of the team and run the marketing digital voice from an external perspective? So I'm coming to you, Lottie, on this one.
Absolutely. So I worked in my previous role with M&S, and I actually was predominantly working more so with them than I was actually with the agency that I was with at the time. So I was in their office 3 days a week, out for 5 days a week. So we were very much kind of entwined in terms of the way that we understand the business, and actually very much ingrained. So we were having, they had their stand-ups and we were present in those meetings. We felt very much part of the actual business and the marketing team overall. I think the reason that did work well was because there was that openness and willingness from the brand's perspective to allow us in. And I think where it is more of a struggle is where there's that feeling of a them and us. In those sorts of instances, it's very difficult then as an agency for you to really understand the business and understand the motivation behind the business, and you know who they are as a person, as a group, as an entity, if you like. So I think from a tone of voice perspective, in order to really get under the skin of that, you have to be able to be part of that business, and that really does rely on the business opening their doors to encourage the agencies in to have that very much a collaborative environment, rather than a mentality, which I think can happen in some instances because of their feeling of wanting to protect your information and brand, and that they're a partner than necessarily a business.
And is that so obviously M&S, I imagine, have large budgets, so can afford to have you in their office. For smaller businesses, how can they tackle that?
You can still do that from the perspective of having people working in your office. Obviously, people are more remote working now, so it may be, it's a slightly different environment. But you can still go and work from ask an agency to come and work from your office, or vice versa, you can work from their office as well, which is a really nice thing to do because you get to spend more of that time together. So even if you're not necessarily working entirely on that brand or that business, you're still in the environment, which I think is a really nice way to do it. So that we've worked in that way as well, to enable us to have more of that feeling of being one business.
Brilliant. And Gary, I think you had some thoughts on this one.
Yes, remind me of the question.
So the question was, do you think that agencies can truly be part of the team and run the marketing digital voice from an external perspective?
Yes. No, I think so.
Now we know who the comedian
I'm a little
is.
bit. I think just to echo Lottie's point is that you're right. The client needs to be really open to us going in there, or an agency kind of being in amongst it all. And I think the benefits of like the creatives in an agency in particular is that we can change the type of person we are, you know, so, you know, we're able to deal with financial services and we're able to deal with, a zoo, right? So we are able to mold the way we act in front of different people at different levels and different industries. So I definitely think an agency can be a part of the team because we can even embrace their values as well. You know, an agency can embrace their values and understand all this because we live and breathe. I think as agencies live and breathe their own values and they really are part of their own business. Whereas I think maybe other industries, they're less cut me, I bleed red kind of stuff, you know? So yeah, 100%.
Love that. Love that. And Joe, I think you had some thoughts on this one.
Yeah, you can almost challenge what a particular client as well as an agency. You can kind of challenge them a little bit more, but also pull them out the box, like think outside. We can see things from a different point of view that perhaps they may not have thought of. So yeah, I think that's, for me, that's probably the best.
Definitely. It is that working together, isn't it? And spending time together. I think for us, the best clients give us that time to spend together. I think if you're kept at arm's length, there's only so much you can do. So definitely, that's brilliant. Let's jump back to AI. Why not? Matt, prep yourself. We're coming. So Charlotte Boakes at Crips, has asked, sorry, I keep getting a bit hoarse. What are the implications of using tools like Gemini or ChatGPT to help write marketing copy? So we touched on this a bit earlier, but she's kind of said, could we end up sounding the same? What's the best way to use these tools to get the most from them and really excel with marketing efforts?
Definitely. And I think that's the biggest answer really is yes, we will end up sounding very similar if we're just putting very basic prompt into AI and saying, do this for me. Because everybody else who's doing that is using the exact same tool that you are. So I think it's really important to have this sort of human review afterwards. So actually, do your values come through? Are you briefing it properly? Are you giving it all the information that it needs to be able to sound like you? But then equally, there's things that we can do to sort of tweak and change the way that we use that tool and what that tool is actually doing. So inside ChatGPT, for example, you can use custom instructions. So those are basically a second prompt that's really good for, say, answer in this way, or use these words more than others, or we really want to make sure it's only 500 words when we take a response or something like that. And the more you can tweak and change those things, you're actually using a slightly different tool to everyone else. So just every step you can take to differentiate yourself from that crowd in terms of what you're using is really, really valuable. But yeah, the biggest one is use it as part of the process, not the whole process.
Definitely. I've been playing with the style mimic. So I've set that up to mimic my content. And actually, I've done some tests of doing the same prompt to the style mimic as just the ordinary ChatGPT. And it is very different. It's much more in my tone of voice, but also continually, because you can't just train it once and go, right, I've given you what I need. But every time it gives me something, I'll tweak it to the version that I'm going to use, but then I'll give it back to it going, by the way, this is what I used. And it goes, oh, thank you. It's very polite.
Yeah, it's good. And it's the way that it's designed to be used, because that kind of AI is a conversational tool, not here's a process, go and do it. It's very much keep going with 3 or 4 different prompts.
And Joe, did you have any thoughts on that?
Or
If we
kind of covered it.
Yeah, that's what I thought. We've also got, so Heather Calverley, hi Heather, from Hornby Hobbies has asked, how much do you think generative AI is going to change the search sphere? So we'll start with Matt, we'll jump to Lottie and Andy on this one, providing there's enough of an answer.
Yeah, I think a lot is probably the answer, because we've already seen with, for example, Bing and Google integrating it into the actual search results. That's going to change the landscape that we're working with, whether we like it or not. So we need to be aware of that, adapt to it. And in the same way that, say, other snippets or widgets have appeared on parts of different searches, how can we make sure that actually what we're thinking about is not just the 10 blue links from 15 years ago, it's what does search look like for the user, and think about the person you're trying to contact with that. I think one of the other areas that I think is actually going to change more is the fact that so many people have access to AI. The generative AI is going to be used in content. It's not always going to be great. And so there's going to be a huge influx of content that is not particularly good. And what does that do to then our ability to stand out from that crowd and actually be the person offering real human valuable content? And I think that's going to be really, really interesting.
Definitely. Lottie?
Yeah, so there was an article, I think it was a Forbes piece of analysis or research that had done, basically implying that the reduction in the use of search engines as a result of generative AI, because people are going to there instead to ask their questions because they can get their answers. So if you're going to purchase something or looking for a service where you need that actual brand engagement, fine. But actually, if it's more of a kind of upper funnel searches where you're generally asking questions to get information, insight, or direction, then there is obviously an opportunity here where people will start to move to different sources to get that information. And whether they're right or wrong is debatable, but that is where people will potentially start to go to, because they feel like they're going to get that more, maybe it feels more one-on-one. Because you're asking directly to one platform. And so there's a different vibe to it, but also that potentially means that we're going to see a reduction in people using those platforms like Google, Microsoft, etc., because they can get that information from somewhere else instead. So I think that will be interesting to see what happens with that as well.
Definitely. And Andy, do you have some thoughts?
Just to kind of echo what Lottie said, is that at the moment we're seeing the automated AI responses come out, and we've seen find quite some comedy reel of results that Google's providing at the moment. So it is a bit dangerous. Hopefully they improve that over time. But I think the recommendation for me would be just to see how it impacts your type of queries that you get traffic from. So for example, we've also seen Google trialing some different product result layouts, where it's actually showing almost like an e-commerce store with filters and things, which is massive change potentially in that environment. So maybe that's been seeing how does that result generated? What can we do to trigger Google to show our products more than other clients? It's just reacting to how it's served. I think it's coming in some shape or form, whether we like it.
And was that a paid for e-commerce listing or was that organic listings?
Bit of both.
Both. Whoa. Wow. And actually, interesting question just to all five of you. Have you seen the AI overviews? Like, because I actually just in my general search at the moment haven't had any appear. Have any of you?
I mean, I've seen them because I've sought them out,
Yeah.
but they're
so.
usually on the US servers. So US rollout has been much, much bigger than what we've seen in any other country so far. There are reports of them appearing in the UK, but they're very, very slight. And the different studies that we've seen in the US, certainly between some awful percentage, but 5 to 45% of searches, depending on which industry you're in,
Really specific.
are triggering them.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is it's understanding what your industry is going to see from these changes. So if you're something, Andy said earlier, deals a lot in this funnel, this sort of area of research and consideration, you're going to be affected a lot more than someone who's very specific.
So if someone wanted to try and get one to show, what kind of questions are they going to need to ask at the moment? I know that might be quite a hard question.
I've found a few, but I keep sending them to Matt going, have you seen this one? I think I've seen 3 so far, but it's questions. Comes up 4 predominantly at the moment. I did one was searching for a phone insurance client we're looking at. The search I made was lost my phone with no insurance. The prompt of this what I recommend you to do, but really the first result was okay. Information. So anyway, yeah, questions.
Questions. Okay, cool. And anyone else seen them at the moment? Just naturally, no?
No, there were some interesting changes. So within the shopping banner, so you now get sort of, if you ask a specific product, you get the images that appear at the top with your products. Also below that, there's been more instances of like, oh, you might, this is what you search for. You might also be interested in this. So that was quite interesting because that's again increasing to almost doubling that space of that unit within this. I think it was on a mobile device. It's actually means a huge amount of space has been taken up all of a sudden, not only just from the original response to the question, but then with the suggestions of other things that might be related to what you search for. So it's not, it potentially could be that product, but then again, it could just be another unit that they've installed to try and push as many products as possible. But it was interesting that that's the appearance of that additional real estate.
Definitely. And I guess also what we have and what we can't take into account at the moment because we don't know because they're not showing is how humans are going to react to them. Because you think actually back in the day when the paid results were really obviously paid results, people that were quite savvy that were like, oh, these are paid results, and this was in the days when maybe quality wasn't as good as it is today, people would jump past those and go elsewhere. So actually there's a chance that people might behavior wise start going, well, I'm not sure about AI, so I'll go to the bit that I'm used to seeing.
Yeah, I think it's going to depend, I suppose, on the quality of it. I think to a big extent to that point earlier, because again, it's that feeling of it's not valuable, it's not actually speaking to what I'm looking for, and that whole piece around personalization. We expect that who we're speaking to, be that the website itself or Google, are going to understand what we're looking for, and if that doesn't come back correctly, that just puts that level of distrust. It's like you don't really understand what I'm looking for, you don't know what you're talking about, but if I don't. So that's going to be a big factor in how well they can quickly kind of adapt that to ensure that the response is more valuable to them than the original response was in the first place. Because if it's not, that potentially going to create a problem and push people away.
Definitely. We've had a live question. So yeah, do remember you can give us your live questions. So Neve at BCMS, thank you for this question. There's some context here, so bear with me. I'm going to read this. So with everyone jumping on the bandwagon, is there a potential chance that an already crowded space will get worse? And with the lesser observed keywords getting picked up and recommended by AI, will there be a massive spiral of costs on bids? So driving up the costs of PPC on platforms like Bing and Google, and ultimately causing smaller businesses to lose out to big players with much larger marketing reach, ultimately making Google, Microsoft the only winners as they get money for nothing as a result of bidding wars and expanded keyword targets. Good question, Neve. Lottie, are you happy to?
Yes, that's a beefy one. I think it's a really interesting point. I think the challenges that the platforms already have, like Google and Bing already have, is that they already increased to that inflation piece, whether they admit it or not, still is a factor that's in there. So I think brands are more savvy now to the fact that we are in a position where we're potentially paying more for the same traffic. And so actually we're seeing that some brands are deciding to, diversify away from paid channels to make their organic channels work harder, because obviously they're tired of paying that money out. And actually you reach a point of diminishing returns where actually those channels are no longer profitable, because actually the return on investment you can get through paid doesn't make sense for you as a business. So I think there are factors like this that Google, Microsoft, whoever, TikTok, etc., they're going to have to take that into consideration, that people's pockets aren't bottomless. Just so whilst they're increasing their costs, that doesn't necessarily factor into the actual revenue profit that the businesses are making off the back of it. So yes, there is a risk, I think, of that happening, where they are going to increase the number of searches through particular areas. But it'd be just interesting to see how the platforms then sort of mitigate some of that, because as you said, if we're then going to see huge amount of competition and CPCs massively increasing, brands won't necessarily be able to accommodate that in cost. And so, you know, what does that mean? Does that mean that brands are going to remove themselves from those bidding spaces because they can't afford to compete? So yes, then you might end up in a situation where just the bigger brands are sort of monopolizing those particular situations because the other smaller brands can't compete. I think from a smaller brand perspective, because that sounds a little bit bleak, but if we're looking at it from the perspective of what we can do, I think ideally it's just monitoring those areas. So understanding where those CPC changes are happening, making sure that we're keeping an eye on the keywords that are huge traffic drivers in those more upper funnel search terms, and then looking at what CPCs are being currently obtained and what those trends look like, and then making a decision about, okay, do we need to look at alternative sources? What other ways are there for us to reach our customers if that isn't necessarily a route that we can do? You know, using first-party data to maybe reach people in those ways instead, so overlaying that data from a PPC perspective and focusing on what we can do. So, yeah, I think it is something to definitely bear in mind. And that would be my recommendation on how to look at with trying to monitor that situation so that you're aware of what's happening.
Definitely. And I guess it's always a case of having a diversified strategy. You don't ever want to be just with one channel because things can change. And you also don't ever want just part of your funnel to be just one channel. It's like mapping your whole customer journey, having a variety of different channels feeding the right kind of traffic and then not being fully reliant anywhere. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I think people assume because we're paid media, so we love paid media. No, actually, yeah, like I love paid media. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, we as practitioners, if you like, within digital marketing, our focus is on getting the best return for our clients. Now we work very much in a total search approach where we'll look at where SEO and PPC can work alongside each other and use similar principles for social as well. And I think that's what any brand should be doing. If they're not doing that with their agencies, making sure that there is that consideration. Some of the challenges around that is measurement, is understanding how you can measure the two, together to make sure that you've got a holistic view of that. But that's definitely, you know, even as a paid media practitioner, we definitely advocate that and making sure that brands are looking at things from an SEO perspective.
Amazing. We've had another live question, Alexandra Brownhill at Hemsley Fraser. Thank you so much. Now this is email marketing, which we don't have anyone that's specifically email expert on the panel, but we'll see how we all feel about this, because I want to make sure we can answer your question. So how can organizations navigate the tightened email marketing rules when trying hard to generate leads through prospecting data? So I guess this is maybe leaning into GDPR and data in that sense. I don't know. I've got a few thoughts, but does anyone want to fight me for the mic, or shall I?
I think from my perspective, it's all about what data you can have access to. So even if we're considering it from a perspective of not necessarily having all the data we used to, or not the access to the users that we used to, it's understanding what the journey was that someone took to maybe sign up to a newsletter or build that audience. And if you can segment that out and be more specific, targeted in the same way some brands that push notifications a couple of years ago, it's knowing who you're sending that to and providing that information with what data you have.
Definitely. And I think it obviously varies B2B, B2C, much easier on B2B. There's less rigorous rules around it than there is B2C. But it's thinking about also how can you generate your own data. So one of the things, and I know our friends at Lab and we're very passionate about, is gamification and where you can place that within the marketing journey so that you can look at ways to engage your audience in a fun way that's enjoyable for them. They're learning something, it's interesting, but actually you can then return for having given them that great experience, we can capture their email address, their data, maybe learn more about them. We're just doing this at the moment, actually, as for, I won't say the brand, but a large recipe box brand. We're adding some gamification to their journey, and the results are just insane. Like the amount of people that are willing to part with data and tell you more because you've created something fun and interesting. Also, I was at an event the other week where they were talking more and more about using WhatsApp and text within the journey. So actually, you have to make it in a way that the customer knows that's going to happen. So we don't want to just text people out of nowhere. But like similar to texts have always been, and WhatsApp's now the same. It's almost like 100% open rate because no one likes seeing the unread message, do you? It's really, really frustrating. So thinking about where you can place that. So actually, this was a training company, and they were using it. They have to get people to fill in a particular form before they can move into the next stage. And people would normally start the form and wouldn't finish the form. So they would say at the start of the form, we've collected your mobile number. If you're unable to complete this at this time, we're going to send you a reminder by text, by WhatsApp. And the completion rates just went through the roof because they were able to, they prepared the person that was going to happen. But also people then started texting back thinking that they were talking to Lottie on the other end of the text message, and they can talk to them. And it was just really interesting. So I think that space is all about personalization of the right message, being able to communicate in a way that someone's given you permission to do and is happy to do, and just trying to diversify that a little bit, maybe not just with email, but bringing WhatsApp in where you can. So hopefully that helps. Oh, we've got another live question. So this is, I'm going to try and pronounce your name correctly. I'm sorry if I get it wrong. Bature from B4 Mind. So how can we use Crowdsource to create meaningful roadmaps, forecasts by using AI? Are there any services or tools in the market?
Is that specifically for roadmaps in terms of a particular thing that they're trying to build out? Is it like a content calendar? Is it something like that?
No, I don't know. Maybe if you could give us a bit more in the chat on that one, we might, because yeah, I'm not 100% sure actually. I read that one live before having read it. So yeah, we'll come back. If you can give us some more on that, Bature, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, we will see if we can get you an answer. I'm going to do maybe one more question. Then we're going to jump to some feedback because we love your feedback. And then we're going to end with our killer questions so that you definitely hang around for that, which I'll tell you what that is in a minute. So let's see. There's definitely one. Oh, so Annie Slater, we haven't answered yours yet. Annie, nice to see you. So this is Annie from WJEC, and she has asked a question around, I'm struggling to start a CRM in any way for our benefit in sales and marketing due to reservations from the wider business, being a huge undertaking that is in the 5-year plan. So I was told this 5 years ago. So how do I convince the board of directors when I don't have an opportunity normally to present to them at my level and my head of department has other priorities? So how do you get a business to care about CRM and the importance of it? And I think Lottie.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, so interestingly, I would use this approach regardless of the topic, so whether it's a CRM or something else. I think so the specific point here around the department or your person you're working with not having the time, I think one of the good ways to approach this is to give them all the information for them so they don't actually have to do any of the work. So if you put that effort into putting the deck together, the information, the business case together, then you can give that to them, they can then go forward with that. So minimizing the amount of input that they need to go into to enable their role essentially in that passing on of the baton much easier. You can also work with the platform. So I would suggest identifying, 1 or 2 platforms that you're quite interested in engaging with. Ask them to help you build that business case because ultimately it's going to benefit them. So we've done this quite a few times with some of the partners that we work with, where we'll say to them, okay, look, this is what we need to do because we need to build a business case to justify the integration of this particular tool or technology. And we will work with them to build that case together. So I think that can also really help because it gives a huge amount of power. They'll have so much data to demonstrate the efficiency, the benefits, how you can use the CRM, which you can then use to pass onwards to actually demonstrate that. And I think having that effort versus reward is crucial, because therefore it all of a sudden it brings the value to the business. They, at that kind of more senior level, obviously it's very much about kind of the profit, revenue, ROI. And actually, if you can go to them with a demonstrable, okay, this is how much profit or revenue or ROI you can deliver off the back of the investment we're going to have to make, this is why we think this is a good idea. You can start obviously using some of the elements of like how demonstrating the use of CRM and how you would use that data in your day-to-day role that we're using now, as well, to kind of give a use case again to say, look, this is why this is a good idea, because if I'm doing like this, if I had something else I could use, then we could do it this way, which would be much more efficient, or it would deliver better insights, data, whatever it would be. So there would be my sort of recommendations on how to approach that broadly, but also from a specific CRM perspective.
And I suppose also just thinking with CRM, with cookieless world, with data, with GDPR, like it's actually, I think there's probably some things happening in the media that you can use to your advantage to say like how important to own our own data, know what it is, have a record of it, manage it properly.
Absolutely. And I think CRM is such an important one. And so many brands are switching that, oh no, we don't have a CRM, or we've got, I mean, even if you've got a spreadsheet, in some instances that is better than not having anything at all. But it is so important to have that data stored so that you can activate that in a useful way across all of the channels that you're using. Also, from a customer experience perspective, if you're not doing that, again, that's the expectation of customers. So many businesses do have their CRMs and will use that information and be able to use that the data in a way that gives them a better experience. If you as a brand aren't doing that differentiates you in a negative way compared to your competitors who potentially are giving that better customer experience. So absolutely using those sorts of insights, and if you can get insights from competitors as well, that's also super powerful to be able to relate as well.
Definitely. Gary, did you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, a little bit. It's more around like the stakeholder buy-in, I think, rather than the functionality of it. From a sales perspective, understand who your stakeholders are and what their drivers are. So if you look at, for example, if it's a CFO that's pushing back, or a general counsel, head of legal, whatever, actually do speak about GDPR and how much you can be fined if it's because it's around, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I think it's more like who has access to that data, and stuff, so you can kind of sell the fear, understand what their drivers are. Because you even look at to prove that we're live. Yesterday, I think like 5 major London hospitals had a cyber attack, right, and all their data got leaked, and now there's like blood transfusions that can't happen for 2 to 3 weeks. So there's real world impact if you don't manage your data correctly. And it's that kind of strapline that you give to the likes of your head of legal or your person that holds on to the purse strings.
Definitely. Right. Batoure's given us a bit more context. We're going to talk about that while you lot do feedback, and we're going to answer Batoure's question, and I'll finish a question which you will not want to leave for, is what to look out for in the second half of 2024. So each of our experts is going to give you what it is that you must not miss that's going to be happening, that you should be worried about or thinking about or planning. Not necessarily worried. I've got
I can think of something that you might be worried about. Yeah.
But so we're going to just jump to feedback. Now, we do this now because this gives you 2 minutes to give us feedback, because this will help us make sure that we create the best content for you. So we're going to cut to feedback and we'll be back in 2. Thank you so much for your feedback. I've just heard from our amazing team that you've given us lots. So thank you. We really appreciate that. So, Bature, we're going to follow up separately because we want to make sure we understand your question fully and that we can give you the best answer. So bear with us on that. We will reach out to you. So the finisher that I promised. So what to look out for in the second half of 2024. And we're going to start with you, Jo.
Gosh, there's so many things. So we've got lots of events that are coming up. So we've got the Olympics, we've got the Euros, we've got the election, all kinds of things like that in this quarter to look out for. Can you tap into any of these? Can you be part of a conversation? We've also got Christmas coming up in the back end of 6 months, I know, but start thinking about it now. Start thinking about Black Friday, start thinking about what you can be doing, getting campaigns up because it's going to come around quickly. And also any reactive PR that you can do as well. So it just taps into, you know, being part of the conversation, being part of what people are searching for, asking those questions. If you can be part of those news articles that are providing those questions and those answers, then you're also going to be, part of the conversation.
Amazing. And
Yeah, I think just kind of to reiterate what Joe's saying is don't forget basics, like those seasonal parts of the year, the Black Fridays, the Christmas times. Yeah, there's a lot of excitement about AI and things, but you still need to make sure you're hitting the mark with those, with your SEO in particular. Try and do that sort of 2-3 months ahead. Make sure that you're not doing it as a reactive, oh, actually Black Friday's next week, it's too late. And the other part to look at is just how AI overviews, I've spoken about this a couple of times now, is how that's going to affect you as that rolls out more and more throughout the year. I'll probably leave that good to talk about some more details, but how that affects you and how you need to react to it.
perfect segue to Matt.
Yeah, I mean, definitely AI overviews. It's only just come out, and we've seen it with everything that Google's ever rolling out, is that they take something as a system or a service and they spin it off into a billion different things. So it'll be really interesting to see the next half of this year what actually the service look like. I think the other big one that sort of has fallen under the radar for a lot of people is when we talk about AI and ChatGPT, it's very text heavy, but actually OpenAI has been working on Sora, which is their video AI model for a long, long time. And that's expected to be released in the second half of this year to the public. So that could be a massive difference in terms of not only the content that we can produce, but also what we need to be aware of from our platform's brand protection, all those kinds of things.
Amazing. A video segue straight over to Gary then.
Yes. Daniel Priestley said this statement a little while back on a podcast, right? Which I've been looking forward to saying out loud. We are at a time in history where we can't see around the corner. And it's really exciting, I think, for all of us that, oh my God, in 6 months' time, we actually have no idea. Think about what it was like pre-AI. That's only like, 15 months ago. That's nothing, right? It's crazy. But in terms of what I would look forward to in the next kind of 6 months is people doing stuff about Zoom fatigue. We've all got Zoom fatigue. We've had it since like 2022, right? So this kind of stuff, I think what we're going to see is higher production for like sales all hands, internal meetings. Get rid of the word webinar. Ugh, it's like really beige, right? It's like live streaming. We're live streaming to an audience. So I think there's that authenticity and storytelling and stuff like that. So for me, it's people doing stuff about Zoom fatigue and just upping the production level that kind of like we're doing here.
Nice. And then Lottie, we've got about 30 seconds.
Okay. So first, for paid media perspective, looking at how PMax, what Google does with that product and how much that impacts all the other formats you can use within Google. We've got changes within Meta in terms of audience targeting and kind of granularities there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I think as we get towards the latter half of the year, looking at where people are having to use more of the heating, etc., and other costs that are coming in, what impact will that have from a retail perspective? When we're looking at planning for things like Black Friday and Christmas, taking into consideration what human behaviors we might be seeing off the back of kind of how people are looking at things now. Finally, it'll be interesting to see what other sort of tools and technology come out. So obviously, as AI is developing further, it does open us up, which is what I was excited about earlier. I got so excited I forgot. That it was about looking at what tools we're actually going to see, how we can use data in a different way, in a privacy safe way, to activate our campaigns in a more exciting and innovative way going forward. So yeah, some exciting things there.
So many good ideas, so many. So if we haven't answered your question, we will reach out to you to answer your question because there's a couple that we didn't get to. But thank you so much. Thank you for your feedback. If you haven't finished your feedback, you still can. The form will still be open, so we'd really appreciate it. There'll be a recording of this, so if you want to watch it back or want to share it with friends, colleagues, etc., because you've had such a good time, you're very welcome to. And that's us. That's us done. So we are finishing for the summer and going to be back in September. Topic pending. Maybe your feedback might have helped us pin which topic we're going to go with. So watch this space. We'll be in touch with what's coming up next. But have a wonderful summer. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to my amazing panel of amazing experts, and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.